In what ways does your media product use, develop, or challenge forms and conventions of real media products? Well, first of all, I'm going to start off with my cover page and the way it uses the codes and conventions. As you can see on the right, my cover page has a main masthead. It's positioned centrally and towards the top of my magazine. I've also erased out the T, O and the R, so it looks like the text is actually positioned behind the main cover star. And on the left, the same principle is used. The main cover star looks like the text is situated behind his head. On my magazine, I've also included date, issue number, website and price, which is just above my main masthead and underneath the skyline, which has an incentive. I've also used an image which is purposely has direct mode of address. The Kerrang magazine also on the left has direct mode of address, and the NME magazine on the screen now also again has direct mode of address, so it makes it more appealing to the target audience and also makes it feel like there's more of a connection between the reader and the main cover star. On my magazine cover on the right, there's a main incentive situated on the skyline at the top of the page. On the Kerrang magazine, again there's an incentive or some kind of link towards what's going to be in the main magazine, like a feature article, maybe some news articles. Also on the NME magazine, there's a Reading and Leeds incentive, so the lineup for 2012 is revealed. It's a kind of incentive to draw the attention of the reader and the buyer of the magazine. The cover lines on my magazine are mainly situated down the left-hand side of the magazine and also on the bottom right corner. Why Area 51 broke up, I put it there because I didn't want it to get too in your face and look too busy around the main cover star. Also, I positioned them on the left column in like a lowered opacity box so that you can still kind of see the brickwork in the background, but you can definitely get a sense of what's going to be in the magazine. I've used different coloured texts to emphasise what's going to be in the magazine, and also a colour scheme relating to Reading and Leeds, which is mainly yellow and red with a dash of white. Also on the Kerrang magazine, the cover lines are mainly in bold where the band is actually referred to, and just some red like thin text underneath to give an overall basic description of what's going to be in the magazine within that article. Whereas if you look on the NME magazine, there's again some cover lines, but very basic ones towards the bottom of the magazine near the barcodes. They've been situated out of the way, whereas with my magazine I wanted them to be on show, big, eye-catching, but not as big as the main cover story. The ways that I developed the codes and conventions for my magazine is I've used some different effects on my photos that I've used in my magazine. As you can see, the main cover star, I've used a sepia effect to give an overall kind of vintage theme to my magazine, whereas if you look on the left at the Kerrang magazine, it's kind of basic. There's a high fluorescent unnatural light, and you can also see some shadows going on the left side of his face. Again, I use sepia effect just to give that grunge vintage look to my magazine. And the NME magazine has got a very basic background, keeping it simplistic with NME, because NME magazines do tend to have a simplistic kind of look to them. But it's good, but I wanted to include the sepia effect to give like a new vibe to my magazine and give something the media industry and media products don't quite have yet. Also on my magazine, I've used textured effects quite a lot. Especially at the bottom, you can see like a paper ripped effect. It kind of fits in with the distorted theme of my magazine, whereas if you look on the Kerrang magazine, the only distorted features I can see are actually on the text, but I've used along the bottom with paper, it's kind of paper textured, so it's like ripping at the bottom, and also on the skyline I've used distorted grime vector packs on Photoshop, and behind the D and the I on distorted I've also included a darker shade blue. The grime vector pack, I used it just to give an overall finished look and professional, and also link it in with the distorted theme. As distortion, I picked that name because of the settings on a guitar amp mainly, and I wanted to use distorted themes for a grime, grunge, new kind of theme to the magazine. As when I was doing my market research, I didn't actually see any grime or kind of distorted looks to it. That was only very brief on Kerrang, but nothing on NME. As you can see on NME, there's actually no grime vector packs or even any kind of distorted look to it, even though it is like an indie grunge kind of music magazine. But I included that just to develop some codes and conventions and try something new when developing my magazine. I also challenged my magazine by using a small barcode. As you can see on the left, with Kerrang magazine, the barcode takes up quite a considerable amount of the actual page, whereas I used just a small barcode situated in the bottom right hand corner. I used only a small one because I wanted to fit as many details and as much text as I could to fill spaces, and not only fill spaces, make it more appealing to my 16 to 25-year-old target audience. Again, also on NME, there's quite a large barcode situated in the bottom right hand corner. It's not as big as the Kerrang barcode, but it's still in the way and kind of covers up some of the image, and I tried to situate it in a box away from any of the image without compromising the cover star. I also challenged the main codes and conventions, as when I was doing market research I noticed that quite a lot of the actual cover pages had a puff or on the actual magazine with some kind of incentive or information in it. I didn't want to include a puff, if you like, with an incentive, because I believed it takes up quite a lot of room, and also I didn't want it to look too cheap or too tacky, as some of the ones on some of the magazines look quite cheap and unprofessional. On NME, they've used some Reading and Lead puffs to almost emphasise the fact that there is some specific and important information about Reading and Leeds, and so it kind of works, but I didn't want to use a puff on my magazine, so I kept it professional, finished, and didn't want to compromise the style that I was trying to go for my music magazine. And the last thing that I've challenged when developing my music magazine is that Kerrang on the left have used quite a lot of images, even like due to subscriptions, posters, feature posters. There's quite a lot of images, and again on NME there's quite a lot of images used, whereas I wanted to keep it simplistic and modern and only kept it to 2 cover stars, a male and a female, as my target audience is males and females. I'm trying to combat any sexism from just rock music is males only, women can't listen to rock music. I tried to combat that and include a man and a woman on the cover page and just keep it simple with only 2 images, and I think it's worked quite well. It's quite simplistic and niche to the market.